My name's Rachel, and I'm here with the environmentalist, activist, scientist, author, broadcaster. You have many hats, Mr. David Suzuki.
Thank you. Just call me Grandpa.
That's great. But we're so lucky to have you here just to hop on a skip over from McMaster University in Burlington. And you're going to be giving a lecture tonight to the community about a message of hope. But it also means a lot more than that you're here speaking with your foundation and speaking to young children this morning about some of the impacts that they can make. So thank you for coming. Just to start off, one of the questions that was kind of crowdsourced, I guess, at the university I was asking people was they want to know how you keep going. So when speaking about climate issues and environmental issues, there's like two perspectives. You can be almost overly optimistic and content with the progressions that have been made, and then there's also the side that is super disheartening and kind of hard to hear. So how do you stay in that middle ground and be
Well, there's no middle ground. We're in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah.
So to me, it's comparable. The whole planet is in a state that America was when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. When Pearl Harbor went off, Americans didn't say, oh God, we can't afford to fight against the Japanese, or this is going to destroy the economy. There is one choice, and you've got to commit everything you possibly can to winning that war. Now the entire planet is feeling the impact of human activity, and somehow it's leading us down a very dangerous end result. And scientists have been saying for 40 years, there's opportunities if we change direction, but there's too much entrenched vested interest in the way it's going. So we say, it's impossible. We can't possibly switch from oil to renewable energy. That's, and it reminds me of the people that before airplanes, they said, no, it isn't possible for an airplane to get off the ground. It's just physically impossible to do that.
Just wrapping their heads around it.
Yeah. So my job is really to tell people, look, we've got no choice. It's very, very late, and there's huge opportunities. I was in my last year in college in 1958 in the United States, and on October 4th, 1958, we were electrified to hear that the Soviet Union had launched Sputnik. Nobody knew there was a space program. The Americans then immediately, they started getting cranked up to try to send a satellite up, and they sent Army, Navy, US, and Air Force. Everyone blew up. Meanwhile, the Russians launched the first animal, a dog, the first man, Yuri Gagarin, the first team of cosmonauts, the first spacewalk, the first woman. And Americans didn't flinch. They just said, we got to catch up and then beat them. And in 1961, Kennedy said, we're going to go to the moon and back within less than 10 years. And the thing that came out of that was every year, NASA publishes a magazine called Spin-Off. Dozens and dozens of technologies and inventions that resulted from the space program that they had no idea. Laptop computers, 24-hour-a-day television channels from satellites, ear thermometers, space blankets, GPS. I mean, all of this just came pouring out because America did one thing. They said, we got to beat the Russians. They didn't know how they were going to do it, but they just made the commitment. And this is what I keep saying right now. People say, oh no, you can't do that. It's not possible. Make the commitment. We've got to get off fossil fuels. And then all kinds of things are going to happen.
And it does a bit of a domino effect as well once one person does come out and say this is something that needs to happen. So moving off of that, I want to talk a little bit about something that I know you're very well versed in, which is air quality. And coming from Hamilton, so we're going to speak aside from Burlington a little bit towards Hamilton, a report was actually just released last month speaking on our air quality emissions and fossil fuel emissions. And Hamilton has historically been known as the Steel City. So DeFasco, and we're a very historically known as Steel City. That's kind of our reputation. But
a dirty city.
Yeah, but when you look at the reports, the thing that's interesting to me is that our steel emissions have actually steadily decreased quite considerably. Yep. But the place that's increasing, and may surprise most, is transportation. 75% of which that transportation is from small vehicles with single car riders. So to me, this issue is a little bit closer to home than people may realize, and we can't use the excuse of it's a steel city anymore. So in your opinion, what advice do you have for people to take this accountability into their own backyard?
I'm here to say Hamiltonians are very lucky you've now got a city council that not only embraced the Blue Dot principle, the idea of a healthy environment, they're actually planning and moving now to invoke that standard. So my belief is in 3 or 4 years, we'll be coming to Hamilton saying, look, would you please come with us to boast about what you've achieved Hamiltonians should be very pleased, and I guarantee you in a few years, they will be very proud of what their city has become. And it's not an accident that it happens in Hamilton. You know, if you look at China, China is now killing over 6,000 people a day from air pollution. Well, why is China the leading advocate now of green energy? 9 out of 10 solar panels sold anywhere in the world are made in China. This is a huge economic opportunity, but they're installing solar panels and windmills like mad. They're the leading country, and their economy is booming because of it, but it was driven of necessity. They couldn't go on killing so many people by polluting the air. Now they've got a long way to go, but they're started.
Yeah, and as do we. I find that as much as we are making progressions, and Hamilton is an outgoing city that's kind of on the rise, and we're definitely rejuvenating the city in a good way. But is there any advice you have for people, because we have noticed that transportation emissions are still going up, so there are still things that need some kind of first step solutions. Yeah. Do you have advice for those?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the things are, we've got to get out of the internal combustion engine in cars. There are real opportunities. The hybrid engine's been there for a long time. So there are ways to begin to reduce. There are electric cars now coming on. And I can't tell you how, I've been driving an electric car for a while now, and it is a zippy little car. I've always thought a car is just a way of getting from point A to point B. I never cared about its performance or anything, but I'm enjoying driving because, and I love the fact that I go by the gas stations all the time and go, nah, 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 nah. I haven't been to a gas station in years, and I love that, you know. So, but the city can certainly encourage that transition. I love seeing bikes, you know, out in the racks. Do you have the...
We have Sobe bicycles, bikes, are definitely great.
That's great, and I think we've got to start working towards serving people rather than cars. Right. Now we do a lot of things for the convenience and speed of cars. No. How about doing something for the health and enjoyment of people? And there, what the challenge is, if you're concerned about your health, the most effective way to reduce the risk, not by 5% or 6%, but by 25, 30, 40% of the risk of heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, obesity, cancer is, do you know what it would be? There's no pill that will do that. Exercise. Yeah. Exercise. We've designed our cities and buildings the wrong way, all for the convenience. The minute you get on an escalator instead of walking up 2 or 3 flights of stairs, you're working against your own health. So we've got to design cities so you want to get out there because it's fun. There are, you know, people to meet and things to see, and
inspiring people to do that.
Yeah.
But with these electric systems, I know that in Ontario, our electricity prices have just recently gone up. So some people are reverting back to natural gas as a source for, they can only afford it. So what advice would you have for systems in that manner that people will logically minded probably think with their wallets first? So how do we encourage people to not do that, not work backwards when it comes to financial?
I think if we continue to allow economics to be the major driver of the way we behave, we're screwed. Yeah. Because the economy doesn't include a place for things that are sacred. Right. To an Indigenous person, a valley of trees is considered their sacred temple, and yet to the economy, well, it's just timber and pulp. And we can't try to argue economically for the value of a forest that is sacred. I mean, how do you do that? We don't have a place. And we call them natural services. Nature performs all kinds of services. Without trees and green things, we wouldn't be here. Absolutely. Because the air would not have any oxygen. It was plants that created the oxygen-rich atmosphere, and to this day, if we didn't have plants, oxygen levels would drop to nothing, because oxygen is a very reactive element and disappears very quickly. Nature filters the water when it drops on the land. Nature filters the water so we can drink it. Nature creates soil. Without nature, without life, you can't have soil. Everything that we eat was once living. We've got to start looking at the world in that way, and then you can't use an economic argument We've got to fit the economy to nature, not make nature fit to the economy.
Absolutely. Those are wise words to close off here. Just one final thought. We were wondering if there was a resource that you believe every person should rather read, listen to, watch. If there's only one, what would you recommend?
Well, I would say take your grandchild or your child for a walk out in nature. And I'm just having a wonderful time now. One of my grandchildren has come to live with us. Their family moved to Vancouver to have twins. And so he's 3 years old, and I walk him to daycare. And the wonderful thing for me is to see the world through his eyes as I saw it when I was a child. You see, when you get older, you become much more cynical about the world. You're much more focused. You know, you walk down the street with earbuds, right away you're telling people, don't bother me, I'm just listening. And, you know, so we isolate ourselves. But seeing the world to a 3-year-old, the world, even though to me it's degraded, it's magical.
Yeah. And as a young person, so a university student or someone around McMaster's campus, for example, is there a resource there that you could offer them, whether it be a book or a video or a podcast to listen to? We're just thinking like academic means, where can we further?
Well, I've written 50 some odd books.
So one of those would be
let me trumpet my own horn. The most important book I've written is called The Sacred Balance, Rediscovering Our Place in Nature. So the whole thrust of everything I'm doing is trying to remind people, first and foremost, you are biological creatures. Yeah. We're animals. Yeah. And as animals, there are needs that we have that you must pay attention to. We need clean air. We need clean water. We need clean food that comes from the soil. We need other creatures. In Japan, in 1982, the government took a tradition that they've been doing for centuries and put it into their medical plan. You can get paid to observe what they call Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin Yoku is forest bathing. You go out in the forest and you are bathed in the molecules that those trees are giving you. And they have shown scientifically it improves your health. It relieves tension. Your blood pressure goes down, your heart rate goes down. There are all kinds of physical ways and psychological ways of showing that forest bathing makes you healthier.
Absolutely. Reconnecting with nature. That sounds like a perfect message to do this. Yeah, that sounds like a perfect message to leave off here. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been fantastic.